Hello, this is Lisa Rusczyk
and Dona Murphy.
with the podcast We Are All Psychic, and we have a really cool, awesome named guest and cool guest as well. We named Lisa. Lisa, would you like to say hello? She knew what I was going to say before I asked her. She said, hi. Are you psychic? Wait a minute. Donna has a question for you. I think Donna has a question for you.
I do. And this is a question that we like to ask all of our guests. And we ask even if the guest has been on a number of times. Lisa, do you think we're all psychic?
Yes. But I think some of us don't realize that we have latent abilities that we are yet to uncover and to utilize. Absolutely.
That's getting to be the most common answer. You just summed it up really succinctly. But that's what most people are coming on saying lately. It's always been the theme, kind of. Like everyone's got it, but they're not working on it, you know?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that, Donna? That's like kind of where everyone goes in the end. Even if they don't start there, that's like where we end up. It's interesting. I love it. If they say yes. If they say yes. Although I've had people say no, and it's been interesting. One person said no. Some people said no because they didn't think everybody was human soul. Everybody had a human soul, stuff like that. They got kind of into that.
I have heard that. Yes, we have heard that as
heard a lot of interesting things. Yeah.
Explanation. Yeah.
Yeah. So listeners and watchers, there's so much about Lisa that you get to know. But the first thing I want you to know, if you haven't seen the video posted on Instagram or YouTube, first and foremost, she uses palmistry. She works with palmistry and reading palms and as a part of her practices. But first, I would love to ask you, how did you get to a yes answer with We're All Psychic? Do you think we're all psychic? Were you always raised around this kind of like belief system?
Yes.
Or
my mother was quite psychic. So I think I want to say that I became conscientious about blocking her out as a child.
I think we all do that.
Yeah.
My mom knows everything too. She knows.
Not, right? Yeah.
She knew when I was growing up. Oh yeah, she always knew. She wasn't a psychic, but she wouldn't say that. But you know, she always knew.
My mother was psychic, but one of the things that she did do as a service for me was she constantly reminded me that we have intuition and to utilize your intuition and to strengthen your intuition and to trust it. And over the years, I've always used it. And I can see when I do hand analysis, I can see those who have strong intuition and use it. I can also see lines of clairvoyance in the hands. So I can see right away, do you have these gifts? Are you using them? I see it more probably than you would think.
No, every palm I see has psychic traits. Or what you call markings or whatever,
but some people aren't using it, or they don't
faint lines.
They don't trust it, right? This is the one thing that when I see lines of clairvoyance, most specifically in a client's hands, I will say, I see a line here that tells me you likely have insights. And what
are the clairvoyance lines for you? I'm so curious. I've got to know.
So the clairvoyance line runs down. This is the moon mount region of the hand. So the line of clairvoyance comes up.
Is it the empathy one that goes like this? It comes up.
It's like a half moon that shows up in the moon mount, starting down on the outside and coming up around.
Oh, that line. Yeah, I don't have that one. It starts out. I have one that starts out, but it doesn't go. But I do have the ability to be clairvoyant.
But this line that comes off the pinky finger.
I do have it. It's connected to my sun line.
Line of intuition. So this line that comes off the pinky finger is the line of intuition.
Okay. Because I always thought like my other hand's all messed up. You don't want to see my headline. Look at that headline on my left hand. Isn't that crazy?
That is interesting. It almost wants to be a simian crease.
It doesn't know what it wants to be. But I was going to ask you real quick. I always ask every palmistry person, the two I've met, do you know what a birthmark on my Mount of Luna means here? I have read so much about what it means. I can't show it. There he goes. You can see it right there. Right. See, it changes colors. It's hiding today. It's flesh.
It looks like a little wart, but no.
It's always been there. It's been there since I was born. It's birthmark. But it comes up and it changes colors. It changes textures. It does all kinds of, I just had a dream about it last night. Maybe, I don't know why, but I remember having a dream about it and it was covered in bumps. I never dream about this mark, but it was covered in little yellow bumps. And I was showing it to my friend Eric. I was like, look at this. And then he was touching it and we were trying to figure out what it was. That's so weird. It just came back to me. That's so strange.
It might be an energetic block.
Might
to
be.
be
I've
able
always wondered. And
to.
the very first time when I started working with my energy, I was going, one of the first signs I got was, or, one of the information that dropped in that I really did think was important and I followed through on was trying to figure out what this was. It was very important to me to try to figure out what it is. And I've never been able to really pin it down,
Do you, in palmistry, do you use the fingerprints as well?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, you do. So you use the whole hand.
Yes. And I sometimes, if they don't have very heavily lined hands and they have enough, or if we can ink them even better, I look at the palmar lines too, the little tiny lines that make little forms and stuff in there, like the bee and stuff like that. Like, I think that stuff's fascinating because you can see it like the bee in a musician's hands, like his songwriter's hands usually is where I see the bee, a composer. Like the bee is like, I have it in mind. It's like right here. We should have put our flashlights on for this one. Kind of goes in, it's like a little diamond shape. It doesn't look like a bee, but it's called it looks like a hive kind of. And I've seen it in every songwriter who's really prolific, especially. Specifically writing, not necessarily performing or anything else, Yeah, it's interesting. So, and then, I love palmistry. We could just go on. I mean, I'm going to shut up now and ask you another question though. So listeners and watchers, I asked her what kind of, where did she get in the field? Where is she? What does she do in the field? So you want to tell them what you do? Because you explained it perfectly. I loved it.
Sure. I am a psychospiritual counselor, a transformation advisor, and a hand analyst, obviously. And I use the hand analysis as my entry point to my counseling practice because the hands obviously are the truth of who we are and they reveal our blueprint. So life, school, our purpose, our lessons, our gifts, our shadow aspects. And since I primarily focus on integrating the shadow, this is my expeditious shortcut, if you will, to accessing the work that needs to be done rather than forcing my clients to spend session after session giving me a backstory. So this way, you go straight in, you know exactly what needs work, and you can get on with it.
Yes, I love that. I think that's a great idea. And we had talked about this before the podcast too, listeners and watchers. If you ever listen to us talk about palmistry, we talk about this a lot. Your lines change all through your life. And you were saying like when you meet people, you can see kind of where they are with their development of different things going on, and that's what I love. Like, have you ever seen a baby's palms? There's not much going on, right? Most of the time.
No.
Right?
No.
Much, and they change and develop as they grow older. I've read people's palms who are like 15, and it's like there's not much usually, and then they're 20, and they're like, oh, there's some stuff going on now. Usually like a sheltered person maybe who had a calm, safe family life, in the farm or something.
So what's consistent is fingerprints, right? And at an early age, the fingerprints do not change over the course of a lifetime.
Yes.
And they are fully formed in utero by 15 weeks. So we've already determined our soul psychology before we are born.
Isn't that weird?
So yeah,
Our biology did that.
Or a 15-year-old would have the consistency of their purpose and their lessons and that already in their hands.
Yes. So like the basis
kind
of the structure of what's going to happen possibly, where they might branch out or whatnot, because I started at 15. I started reading palms at 15. So I've been watching palms for like people I know for I'm 51 now. So it's been a long time to watch my own hands. Like they were not this busy when I was younger. They were not. Probably around 40 is when they got a lot of little lines all over them,
I love doing repeat readings for precisely that reason. Because
that's what I do with friends. Yeah, long-term friends. Yeah.
And also the texture. Does palmistry account for the texture?
Yes, and the color and everything. Yes. And color of hair or hair, no hair, everything. It covers. And it talks about vitamin deficiencies and stuff like that with your nail colors and stuff like that. You probably look into that as well, right?
Yes.
Oh my God. I would love, you guys have got to go check her out because that sounds like such a, so basically she was telling me she's kind of like a coach, but not really. Because you were saying you don't like the term coach. I don't really prefer it either. Because it's just like a broad term, it doesn't really explain anything. What are you coaching? Right? Like you said, it made you think of like sweat socks or something. I thought that was funny.
Yes, coach does inspire sweat socks in my mind. Yeah, so I consider myself a transformation advisor, right? I'm here to give someone guidance more than anything else to help them access their own truth and wisdom so that they can start living from that. That's what I want. This is the thing that I love about hand analysis as well. It's revealing the truth of who you are. I want you to know your truth. I want you to trust yourself. I want you to feel inspired to follow your own wisdom. And that is what I'm trying to point everyone towards in the work that I'm doing, and cleaning up whatever needs to be cleaned up along the way. Where are those trauma points and those places and patterns that need to be healed, so that you can get on with living the gifts, living your purpose, right?
Yes. I love it. That's so beautiful. I think that's a great approach. And I bet there's some astrologers who take that approach too, I imagine. Because I think palmistry and astrology go hand in hand, so to speak, because they have so many of the same names, you know, and they do the same things. They move, they change, and they say the same at the same time, you know, and they are structured. You know, we have a structured chart that shows our way, but this is in our biology. That's just crazy to me. You know, it's in our genes, and our palmar lines are also like our fingerprints, from what I understand. They're there from birth too. These little lines all here, is that right?
There are more connections between the hands and the brain than any other part of the body. And this is what most people don't understand. Hand analysis is now, you know, fully backed by neuroscience and psychology research.
I didn't know this. This is great.
Yeah. So we now know that there are more connections between the hands and the brain than any other part of the body. And the sensory cortex is sending signals to our hands all the time. So they become the discernible markers, right? That's why we find the personality psychology in the mutable parts of our hands, because it is either reinforcing the soul psychology in the fingerprints, or it is deviating from that. Hence the reason
I get what you're saying. I got you. I'm sorry. It all hit me at once. Exactly what you're getting at. I just love what you're doing there. So you start with the fingerprints then. See, like the big.
The fingerprints.
Let's talk about the fingerprints if you want. Do you want to? Because I'm kind of curious what you do there, because I always look at them as there's 4 different patterns really on the fingertips. How deep do you go then? Do you go deeper than that with the finger?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there are primary patterns, but there are sub patterns within those 4 patterns.
I've seen them, but I don't know what they are. Yeah, I've seen different types of tent, let's say, you know, or whirl or something. But I have a composite on my left thumb, and I have a whirl on my right thumb. So they're different.
So they're essentially both whirls, but as you probably know, the composite whirl operates like a truancy officer. So if you are you have to be overcoming your life lessons for the gift of that particular whirl to switch on. Otherwise, if you aren't overcoming your life lesson with consistency, the gift of that lies dormant.
Thank you. So my willpower, and I got it, I think. I think I did. No, I've always had a hard time. I was kicked down a lot, and I stay down on purpose, you know, because I know any better. I thought that's where I was supposed to stay, you know, for a lot of my life. And so you saying that makes sense, because I always thought the composite was sometimes you are like really great at this, and sometimes you are terrible at this. You know, it's kind of how I took it.
You can be great at it
so much sense.
You can be great at it all the time. You just have to know what your lessons are and be overcoming them with consistency, right? And the beautiful thing about the lessons, and this is the thing I like to tell my clients, is your lessons are not meant to be punishment. They are essentially gifts waiting for you to overcome the challenges surrounding them, right? So you build self-awareness first, and then when the next challenge arises that's going to you know, trigger that life lesson, then you can like recognize it coming and be like, yeah, I'm ready for this one now. Here it comes again, right?
I love this so much. Donna, do you have any questions at this point? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly find this fascinating. This is not an area about which I know a great deal, at least not in terms of hand analysis or palmistry, although obviously there are a lot of similarities to other types of, if you want to call it spiritual work, spiritual advising. For me, Lisa, I work with the tarot primarily, but not exclusively. And again, the approach or the idea that certain patterns that repeat, there's there's pattern recognition, and then there's pattern, I'll call it interpretation. You know, how effective is this pattern? It's not a question of a value judgment. And I loved what you said about the idea that our life lessons are not punishment. We aren't being punished.
Yeah.
But we are being shown something. And so without placing a value judgment on it, what are we seeing? And then for me, I look at it in terms of efficacy. Does this pattern support me? Does this pattern undermine me? Or with a client? Yes. Does this pattern support you? Does this pattern undermine you? When you take out the value judgment of it and look at it in terms of efficacy, I think it's a little easier then to begin to say, okay, then how do I prepare myself, like you said, for when here it comes again?
Yeah.
When instead of being bowled over, steamrolled over by it and kind of crushed, either temporarily or, whatever by it, is what can I do differently through this awareness? What can I do differently?
Yes. And one of the things that I like to do for my clients particularly is to point out, let's talk about how you have navigated those lessons, because you have attained a specific skill set that then becomes a gift because you are exalting the lesson, right? So you now have a particular skill set which you can utilize in service to others who might be struggling with the same thing. So this is where lessons are really gifts. They're not punishment. Yeah. They're just gifts that need a little kind of refinement and,
look
attention.
At it differently and play with it and readapt it and make it good.
Well,
refute it, I love it.
A lot of times the things that I think we think of as our, if you want to call them our worst, traits or our worst, enemies within, really can become a superpower.
You're right.
There's truly an alchemical process. And that's why I think that working with an advisor with whom you connect really well and whom you feel, a good rapport with and where there's good communication, all of that process is an alchemical process for transformation.
Absolutely.
But again, that's a gift, and finding a person that you feel comfortable working with and that, or maybe not always comfortable, but that you trust. Well, or maybe not comfortable, might not be the right word, but that you can trust.
Yes.
Is just, I think, essential for all of us, because I think we all have stuff, right?
Yeah.
The stuff varies, but we've all got it.
I love getting readings.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to have had someone like you when I was younger, either of you, to coach me or teach me or help me and figure out like what you're telling and doing now. Like if I had known this stuff at like 15 or 16, even, it would have made a big difference in my life. Had the option to, I was in Alabama. I found some stuff like palmistry, but it was in a Time Life book. It was like it's hard to find stuff. There wasn't even an occult or a New Age section in the bookstore, in Alabama. I had to go to the library.
Right.
And go to Pennsylvania. My family's mostly they were from Philadelphia and Connecticut, so we went up there every summer and Christmas. That's where I'd get all my cool books, and cool music and stuff. But I really want to ask, like, what made you realize you wanted to do that with your life? That you figured this out for yourself and you've gotten somewhere with it and you feel really good about your life and you want to show this to other people. Where did that come from? Where did that spark come from?
A long story.
I like it.
My mother was a spiritual teacher. Okay. And I made my first commitment to waking up in 1987 during the harmonic convergence when I was 15 years old. And what followed was years of exploration, first to overcome and heal my own childhood challenges. So early on, it began mostly with reading. So reading books like Autobiography of a Yogi and the Tao Te Ching and that sort of thing. So I was reading those books when I was still a teenager. Yeah. And then I started practicing yoga and meditation pretty seriously in my 20s. And I did eventually go on to get my yoga teaching certificate.
Yes.
And I consistently utilized a lot of different healing modalities. I was very interested in not just meditation or therapy or yoga. I needed to heal my body. So yoga was a very good way to do that. But I have always felt like you need a lot of different modalities to get clear and to really get aligned with the full holistic wholeness of who you are, right? We are mind, body, spirit, right? So all of those things need attending to in different ways. So for me, it was a question of how are all the ways I can heal here? There's energy work around the body, and I can get into that. I was very interested in astrology early, so I got into that very early on. I got into numerology. I was very interested in personality studies. So things like the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs. And then I got into human design and the gene keys. And so all of these things in my mind were expediting my healing process because they were giving me more and more insights into myself.
Exactly.
And
new perspective is always welcome. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say like my last real stint through therapy was psychoanalysis, and it was twice a week. And at the time I was 33. And I remember thinking, oh, why does this feel like it's taking me so long? I felt like I was treading water and I wanted it to be faster. And I thought, okay, how can I use all of these tools in conjunction with my own healing to speed this process up? There has to be easier access. And it was around that time when I started to find some of the more enlightening options. Gene keys came along later, but when I got into the gene keys, I realized like the gene keys are legitimately telling you your shadow.
I don't know what the gene keys are. Can you tell me what that is? I'm not familiar with that. The other things you said I am, but not that.
Right. So the gene keys it's similar in that it's based off of your specific time of birth, right?
Okay.
So, but it's really navigating your DNA and that sort of thing. Richard Rudd, who is the man who wrote the book and teaches about all of this, it was all channeled information for him. I mean, he considers
about it. Okay, that's really interesting. I'll have to look into that because I've never done that one. Yeah.
Right. So essentially, you have a gene. You have several gene keys. It's a connection of gene keys. Then they do different things in your life, and they have a shadow side and an integrated side, and then an enlightened side.
Okay.
And so I started looking at each particular key in my own chart at the shadow and processing all of it. But again, these are archetypally predictive tools. They are pointing you towards things that you may be embodying, but you also may not.
Yes.
They may be latent
tools.
parts of yourself that you're not accessing. So
yeah, like not everybody's hand is going to fit every screwdriver,
Well,
it's
exactly.
a tool. Yeah.
And I wanted something that was more concretely predictive. And that I actually was listening to a podcast with a master hand analyst, and he was talking about how you can specifically see the shadow very concretely predictive in the hands. And I thought, I might have just found the tool that I've been looking for.
It's interesting because palmistry, old school palmistry books really did focus on the negative and I would say luck and negative stuff happening. So, whereas it's different with astrology, it's kind of what is your fortune? Whereas when I was taught, I taught myself palmistry, but as I learned, it changed over time how it was taught and learned in books and stuff like that. And it used to be like we had talked about this before the podcast. I think when we talked about the lines changing, it used to be taught, the lines change, but hardly ever. And I was like, that's not true. That's not true at all. I could tell after 5 years that was not true. And they also taught that things were like, you are like this. You are definitely like this and you can't change it. That's how palmistry used to be, but it's not. It's not at all like that. It's very much flexible. Like how you use it, I think is the perfect example of how it should be used. I mean, I've always used it for divination and just giving people a little wow, because it's exciting, when you and someone who's never had a card read or a reading doesn't even really know what it is or anything like that, does not know about spiritualism or anything, say, well, I read palms, and they're like, really, let's try it. And to say something like, well, it looks like your parents split up when you were young, and they're like, oh, just something like that. How could I know that? By looking, something that's very specific, let's say, for example, or that they're really imaginative, scientific. One person, I was reading their palm and I was like, it looks like you're in politics, because she wanted to know if I could guess which field she was in. And she said she was studying politics in school. So stuff like that would come up, and I just found like if you had picked that person up, you'd be like, okay, before maybe she even led that direction when she was in high school, you could have said to her, you look like you are great at what you want to do. You want to be a lawyer, you're going to be great at it. Looking at she had like the strongest, like line going like up to her Jupiter finger from this palm. And she has some other markings that kind of told me she liked to, debate and stuff like that. And it's just really cool to see that her light up telling her about these qualities. And I kind of stay away from the darker qualities, but it's really interesting that you go there first, or pretty much with everything, I guess, kind of together, right? The good qualities
well,
and
I liked it. One of the things that was appealing to me about hand analysis specifically was that it highlights the gifts as well.
Yes,
and
does.
so when you're navigating,
the
you're navigating shadow aspects. That can be scary work for people, right? Yes. They don't know exactly what they're going to find in there. I mean, the truth is there can be plenty of positive qualities that were just not deemed desirable by, your family of origin.
Exactly.
And so you have subsequently, relegated that to your unconscious.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's a lot of content in there that is actually worth exploring.
Yes.
And very well be positive and life transformative if you bring it back on board. But going in, the word shadow in and of itself, people go, oh my God, it's scary.
Yeah, it's the dark, scary right. Forest. Yeah.
I mean, just by virtue of the fact that shadow implies darkness, people assume that it's going to be their worst qualities. And so I like hand analysis because I can say, we're going to empower your gift simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be highlighting all those places in your life that you should be energizing the beautiful qualities, the real gifts that need to be utilized as well, right? One of the things that hand analysis does, and I don't know if palmistry does this, is
I think they're the same thing. I just call it palmistry, chiromancy, hand analysis. They're all the same to me. But I like how you call it hand analysis. It's I
call it hand analysis because I don't know palmistry. I'm going to be totally honest. There are definitely deviations there. I mean, hand analysis has its origins in ancient palmistry, but we're talking about decades of neuroscientific.
I've never talked to anyone who reads palms other than two other people and you. So that's all I know. You're teaching me a lot. I mean, I
can tell you that when you talk about the Palmer. Prints, right? That though only 25% of the population have those. It's a smaller fraction, than you might believe.
I can't always see them.
Because only 25%.
I just thought they were busy hands, and I couldn't see them.
Yeah, see, I've known about palmistry for a long time, but it did not pique my interest because my brain is more scientific, and I have a tendency to be skeptical. I like things that are rooted in a measure of hard science, if you will. And, I studied at the International Institute of Hand Analysis in Switzerland. The Swiss are not known for, being particularly funny.
You're good at watches.
Oh, absolutely. They're precision. They're pretty serious people.
It's precise thinking.
Yes. And for me, that was very comforting. I'm like, as woo as this can be, I liked that it also had the hard science backing, right?
I mean, the non-woo.
Yeah. And I mean, as much as I was inclined towards the work that my mother did through her spiritual teachings, I went off into hard education. I got a master's degree in philosophy, and then I went off into a PhD program in transformative learning. I needed some of the harder credential stuff
That's really
in my
cool,
mind.
man.
I was like, I needed to legitimize it in my own mind, I guess.
Yeah, we all do. We all do our own way. I think what you pointed out is just huge for everybody. Because you had mentioned it at some point, someone having the confidence, helping them get the confidence to work through shadow, work with their abilities. And if you can find in their hands to start off with and stuff like that. Well, like everything you're saying just makes so much sense as like a way to heal and teach people how to heal. Because it's a framework that for me anyway makes a lot of sense. I don't know for me, because like I had to find my own little truth of how this all worked. And this is my door. This was my doorway, and then I had a lot of other things happen because when you open one of the doors, a lot of the doors suddenly appear.
Other doors keep opening.
Yeah. So which one do I go through now? Is there tarot, and there's an astrology door, and there's an empathy door, and
a thread, and they're all connected.
They're all open for me. They all went around like 27. That's when it all went. I wasn't sure before then. I'd pretty sure I was doing something, but I wouldn't say I was a psychic. I think I might be. I might be using it, and then by the time I worked with it in the field and enough, probably for about 10 years, I really did start this podcast. I still think we're all psychic. I got to that point just naturally, logically. It just makes sense, because everyone I read for on all these lines or in person, I could see them using energy. I would say now I'd be like, she's an empath, or they're a telepath, or they are, I could just tell. I've always been pretty good at that by looking at it. And you can find those, like you said, you can find those lines. Like there's the line of Solomon, which is like a little telepathy line around your ring finger, people. Like if you're just watching on Spotify or YouTube in the middle of the podcast, I'll let you know. We have a video and for a palmistry class. It's like, I'd love the listeners. I'd love to hear you guys if you want to comment on this and you're regular and just popping in. I would love to hear what your door was, what got you interested in this area of healing and where your direction is. Because I think all of us end up healing. I don't know what our direction might be to begin with. Like for me, palmistry was just a curiosity, it was a curiosity, really. That's it. And I was very curious about it, though,
Yeah, I think we live at a time that is pushing people towards healing. I don't think it's the case that everyone has healed or everyone will necessarily be on a healing trajectory. I think we live at a time in human history and our planet's history where we are going through a global transformation that is forcing us in many respects by virtue of living through the chaos that we're going through to start making, some recognition of our own wounds and how that's affecting our lives and
the countries and the world. Our own wounds are what messes everything up.
If you look at the world, the collective shadow is up in everyone's face, right? I mean, it's impossible to watch any news anywhere and not see collective shadow. It's right there, front and center. So if you don't want to be part of the problem, you have to be working on yourself, period. That's just how it is now. The beauty is that we have so many tools at our disposal. I personally love tarot. I get readings because I think, I can certainly know things about myself, but there are always things that I can have struggles accessing.
I can't read for myself. I have a hard time.
Exactly.
But it's really hard for me,
I mean, when I sit with clients, I always invite my spirit team to be present and their spirit team to be present. And, I get insights, whatever I need to, whatever I need to know to help the client best move into.
Okay, so you use all your psychic abilities and skills and everything you've worked with.
And that's what I mean when I say, it shows up for my clients. I have much easier time accessing that when I'm utilizing it for my clients than when I'm utilizing it for myself, right? I think it's easy.
Yeah.
I think
I'll pull another card even if I get my answer. I'm like, well, what else?
Right.
Are you sure?
That's the skeptic. The inner skeptic in me is like, well, I heard that, but I'm not sure I believe you. So can you?
That's me. When I'm reading for myself, I am the skeptic, I guess. Or I can't figure out what the answer is, even though for anyone else it'd be so obvious. I'm overthinking, like, the Ace of Pentacles. I'm overthinking, is it a job or isn't it a job? Is it a money? Is it money or job? Is it an opportunity? Is it, and I pull another card, King of Swords reverse, judgment, I get freaked out and, I take it too seriously sometimes. I've seen people with apps do that, like that who don't know tarot. They'll start reading and they'll give you the good and the bad, sometimes not upright and reversed. They just give it all in a paragraph. It can be this or it can be that, and the cards read upright. So I've known people get into that and they're like, they'll read the positive and you see their faces lighting up as they're reading it out loud, and then they get to the negative and they're like, oh my God, and they get emotional like they're watching a movie or something, like some people get really emotional when they're learning tarot because it is. I mean, it's about self-exploration. And then when you read for me personally, reading for someone else became easier I used to just read for myself and then I could read it for other people, but then I couldn't read for myself. So it's kind of weird, right? Because I haven't gotten back there yet. So what would you say would be the most common, maybe few common shadows that you see in the palms that you work with, first of all?
Common shadows. The way people reinforce self-doubt. I see that's
what does that show for? How does that show?
Well, for example, I have a self-doubt lesson. So one of my lessons is actually self-doubt. So for me
too. I bet
it shows up. Yeah, it shows up in a number of different ways. Some of which is just undermining my own progress by,
Did you get
finding ways to stay busy to avoid the thing that I perhaps should be doing? Did
you get to the root of it for yourself? Are you still digging, or have you gotten to the root of that particular? Like for you, as an example, like for me, my self doubt, I've gotten to a lot of the roots, but I haven't got the seed found the seed of my self-doubt. I think it's just something I haven't gotten there. I can, make conjecture about it all day, but I really don't know. I had to have self-doubt, a lot of it, but I've got to work on it too.
Yeah.
And it comes up and down. My confidence goes up and down and about my choices and stuff like that.
I probably would have been a little terrified if I had found this tool earlier than when I did find it. I actually have the most challenging set of hands I've ever read. I mean, I have 2 life schools and 4 lessons, and I have gifts that have some of the hardest penalties if they're not being used.
Gosh. Yeah.
And I when I looked at my hands, like, oh my gosh, this would stop most people in their tracks, right? I think if I had someone read my hands earlier in my life and tell me that, I probably would have gone off some sort of deep end.
Right.
Right. I mean,
careful what you say to people when you'd be reading.
Yeah, exactly. Because I had already done so much work on myself by the time I found hand analysis, the only lesson I was still dealing with was the self-doubt. I already knew the others. I mean, basically, hand analysis just confirmed it for me. It was like, oh, yes, absolutely. I already know that. No surprise there.
So it's kind of cool to find a synchronicity there with the hands and the fact.
Yes. So even the self-doubt was not a surprise. I mean, none of the lessons were a surprise, but the self-doubt was the only one that I was still chipping away on. And I can safely say it has been this past year that I am finally at that point where I see the challenges head on, and I'm like winking a nod. I got you now.
I love that attitude. I want to be like that.
Okay. Bring it on. I can do this. Yeah. And I give myself pep talks. But
I started doing that. I've been doing that too. Recently, I just started trying stuff like that. I can't catch myself calling myself an asshole or something. I'm like, don't talk to myself like that.
No.
Talk with
I think self-talk and our dialogue our internal dialogue can do a whole lot.
Yes.
To either
even
really
if we're
help us along.
Yeah. Yes. Or hurt us.
Or hurt us and hold us back.
I will very sarcastically self-deprecate myself when I'm alone. And I think it's funny, but after a while, if I say it too many times, my brain's going to be like, well, so I really kind of am aware that I do it. I don't do it around other people, but I'll joke, I joke with my cats. Look at mama. She's being an idiot again. She dropped everything, but it's not really, I don't think I'm an idiot. I don't think I'm clumsy. I know why I dropped everything, So, it's like, I will say it out loud though. So, but I've kind of gotten to this point now where I don't even want to say it out loud as a joke, You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually call myself by my last name, like I'm some fraternity brother. When I, when I go down the road of being, when I want to be self-deprecating or whatever, or when I'm aware that I'm not giving myself enough credit, I'll be like, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing right now?
You don't have to do that, right? You're like, you
don't have to do that. You don't have to talk to yourself like that at all. And it's one of the things that I try to do with my hand analysis client, or my clients just more broadly. I want them to treat themselves with a certain amount of self-compassion and kindness, right? I remind them to be kind and gentle.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am relaying difficult information, and often I'm digging somewhat before I share aspects in the hands, I will say, may I ask if you had this happen in your childhood, or was there a situation that might have been, unsettling around your security and safety? And then I get feedback from clients, and I'm aware, yes, there is a wound there, and I can see whether they are. And this is where intuition in my work is so important. I can see whether they are still sensitive around that area. And if they are, you want to tread lightly, right? You want to make sure that
great idea.
They are viewing the things around themselves that they might need to acknowledge and work on with as much compassion as they possibly can. I don't want anyone leaving a session or knowing all of these things about themselves, then going and belittling themselves, beating themselves up, especially, if you're someone who walks in and has a life lesson around self-doubt or rejection. The last thing I want anyone to do is then find excuses to then do that to themselves.
Reinforce that. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely not.
And I've often had, because I, in my experience, have had clients sometimes that I know are essentially pretty, kind people, but not to themselves. And
That's how
and
I
this is
was.
something I was taught a long time ago, but and I don't even remember where I read it, heard it, or whatever. But I'm like, if your beloved sister or friend came to you, would you ever in a million years talk to
To them
her the
like
way you're
that. I
talking to
know.
yourself, the way you're talking to yourself
My
and
therapist said
dealing
that to
with your
me.
pain or your vulnerability? And
Right.
they're like, oh my God, I would never do that. And I'm like, well, then could you please
Why
stop
would you
doing
do
it
it to
to yourself?
yourself? Right. I had a therapist say that to me. My one
Yeah.
therapist at work. And she said that kind of based, not the exact same thing, pretty
Mhm.
much that, if you wouldn't do that
Yeah.
to that person, why would you do it
You
to
just
yourself?
wouldn't do
Like,
that to
because I
another
deserve
human
it.
being.
That's what I said. And she's like, why? I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and that can
No.
can
Yeah.
actually start a new dialogue or a new exploration that says, well, wait a minute, if you don't feel that you're worthy of at least
Yeah.
that much kindness as another human being, let's maybe look a little more at that.
I love that. Yeah. So, Lan, Lisa, you've brought up some great conversation today and great topics. I love self-exploration. I love everybody being happy with themselves. I want that too in the world. So I think we're all uniting on that one too, as same as we're all psychic. But where can the listeners find you? And you have a website, or do you have any kind of
I
contact?
do have a website, lisahedley.com, but I'm most active on Substack. So I have a Substack,
Okay.
and you can actually, I'm posting fairly regularly on there. There's a whole archive that gets into hand analysis. So there are a number of posts that talk specifically about hand analysis there. And there's also a link to book directly from there.
Okay.
And anyone who decides they want to come and have a hand analysis can use the code podcast at checkout for a $50 discount.
$50 discount.
Listeners, yeah.
Listeners,
and we'll
that.
make sure, and as much, and I always say this, as much as we like people to watch our podcasts and even watch them more than once, we'll make sure that any way and anything that you want to share with all of our audience is in the description portion so that they can easily go and find you wherever you want to be found. And again, a great thing like that with the coupon, we'll make sure that that's easy for them to find.
Right? Donna, caps.
Yeah, we'll make sure they can find that easily. But that's amazing. That's really generous and wonderful.
Coupon. That's so nice, man.
Well, I think it's just, I think people, they want to be able to do some self-exploration. So go to Substack and check out the archive, because I've covered almost all the gift markers, and there are images of the prints, and I have circled things and drawn in things so that, people can start exploring this for themselves. Obviously, you want to look at it in a context of the whole, because these things work in conjunction with each other. But it is kind of fun to go in there and say, oh, look, I have the star of Jupiter. I am here to be an influencer and a leader and someone in a position of power. Maybe that changes how they see themselves moving forward, right? So I think it's fun. And I do try to drop stuff in there so that people can do some self-exploration.
That's
wonderful.
So rad, man. I love it.
That's
Listeners and
great.
watchers, go get her. Go get her. $50. Let her get you. I mean, she'll get you for real, though. She'll get you, She'll get you. You know what I'm saying? Not get you, but she'll get who you are. There we go. With palmistry and other things that you do. So, and at this point, I also like to thank Everclear. Everclear is our sponsor. Everclear is an advice app and website, everclear.com. And you can get advice from psychics and empaths, so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And I am under the name Lisa Rusczyk as an advisor on Everclear.
And I am under the name Dona Murphy as an advisor on Everclear. So you can look for either one or both of us there and here.
And lots of other people too. They're all rad. All those readers are
yes.
So, and lastly, Lisa, do you have any advice maybe? Can you think of any advice, Donna, for her to give our listeners and watchers about like our audience? Who knows who they are? We don't know who they are really. Well, we psychically do, but we don't talk about that. I like envision the audience, a lot of people starting out, delving into the subject, and maybe people, I think the palmistry, I noticed that my palmistry episodes have the most views. So, and downloads. That's why I was like so excited that you're coming on, because we get to dive into that some, And So I know the listeners will be listening to this one according to that. They don't know anything, but I'm guessing they will. So any advice to anyone? I want to go with a palmistry advice, if that's okay with you, instead of self-development, or you can do both. With palmistry, like someone first dipping their little finger in the ink, let's just say, what would be the first thing you would tell them if they've never studied palmistry? What would be the first few things you'd want them to know starting out? If you were to teach it to them, or before they started, to educate themselves or something.
Well, I think maybe I would want them to know that it's just the truth of who they are. It's not a positive or negative thing necessarily. Exactly. Not attaching any judgment, just being really open to receiving how your life has created a blueprint that is discernible. And I think we haven't learned well enough how to receive truth about ourselves, because of course there's a lot of
suppression of that.
Well, and compliance, right? We're taught to be compliant and accommodating.
That's suppressing ourselves.
Yeah. And everywhere. I think, in my mind, this is the beginning of ending self-abandonment.
Good. I hope so. I hope so too. We don't need to abandon ourselves anymore. None of us do. None of us ever needed to begin with. We were just taught that as a habit and a pattern, I think, if any of us live that way. And thank you so much, Lisa. That was great. We have one last question for you. Do you love our listeners and our watchers? Do you love them with all your heart? She said, absolutely. You're going to marry the listeners and watchers. You're going to marry them. Thank you so much, Lisa. That's great. They love you back, I think. Do they, Donna?
Yeah.
You hear them?
They do. And we love our listeners and watchers. Right. We love our wonderful guests. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your gifts with us. This has it's been enlightening. It's fascinating. There's definitely more I want to find out about this.
Me too.
Thanks to you. And it's just been a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show. This has been terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
it was my pleasure.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Listeners and watchers, y'all have a great time wherever you are, and we will catch you up with something new next week. Peace out.
Yep.
Bye.
See you all soon.
Okay, listeners and watchers, we were just talking after the podcast wrapped, and she told me something so freaking fascinating. I had to record her saying it. Would you like to repeat it for the listener and watchers for a PS for the podcast?
Absolutely. So if I could not see your face, but I could see your hands, I could reverse engineer your face from the aspects in your hands.
Dang. We got to see this in action, listeners. Yeah. You go ask her to do that. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.